Hey guys, what's going on? I got a very special guest today. He is Caleb Noe. He's from WCPO. He is the sports director. What's going on, Caleb?
Hey man, good to be on here with you. You got me out of bed this morning, so that's a you've already succeeded in one way with your podcast.
Yeah. I saw the other day you said it was really early. It was like 6 a.m. You got to go out to the Bearcats training camp. That was pretty early for you then
Well,
too.
let me tell you, man. I even said on TV that day, they were like, "What stuck out to you the most at practice today?" And then I was like, "Well, what stuck out to me the most was seeing 6 a.m. on my alarm clock this morning." Because,
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
seriously, that doesn't. I mean, dude, I'm telling you though, man. I've been telling people football's turning me into a morning person this fall because like the Bengals have, we start our media stuff with them at like I guess noon, which obviously I'm not waking up at noon. That has me waking up at like 10 o'clock each day. And then the
Right.
Bearcats are practicing at like, the crack of dawn. So I mean, I've been getting up early. I'm kind of proud of myself, man.
Exactly. So let's do a little bit of background about yourself, where you grew up, how you got to Cincinnati, and what made you, I guess, want to become a broadcaster.
Yeah. So I got to Cincinnati, but it didn't even when I got to Cincinnati, it didn't feel like I was getting to Cincinnati because I had been here so many times in my lifetime. But I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised. My mom, though, is from the Cincinnati area,
Okay.
Boone County High School grad, and she is very proud of that. She will tell you all about Boone County. But yeah, I mean, we were here all the time. Her whole
Right.
family still lives here, and so when I got here, I was very proud to be here
Right.
because it was kind of like a second home to me growing up. It's where I always came to visit my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and stuff growing up. But no, as far as my career and stuff is concerned, I started as a news reporter in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay.
Always kind of knew that sports was where I wanted to be, but that was sort of a foot in the door. Really enjoyed my experience there and, got a lot out of that. But then I took my first sports job in West Lafayette, Indiana.
Ah.
Covered Purdue for a couple of years and Jeff
Yeah.
Brom and those guys up there. Then moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, and covered the Vols. Covered some games at Neyland Stadium.
That'd be cool.
That was, you want to talk about like an awesome just traditional game day atmosphere, man.
Right.
Talk about
That's some serious college football country down there.
You talk about a game at Neyland Stadium, or you
Yeah.
talk about like when the Vols go down to Alabama, where of course they have not had a lot of success in recent years. Maybe maybe this is the year. I don't know,
Hey,
but
you never know.
yeah, those games down in Tuscaloosa and on the plains of Auburn and stuff. It's good stuff down there. So then moved up here to Cincinnati, and here we are.
That's awesome. Now, how long you been here? 3 years, 4 years?
Going on 3 years. Yeah,
3
going
years.
on 3
Awesome.
years in Cincinnati. Yeah. So I mean, it's been a wild time, man. I actually moved here in March of 2020. I think it was like
Oh
March.
wow! Right at the beginning of the pandemic.
I think it was like March 9th of 2020. And then so it was like 3 or 4 days later, the whole world shut down. So it's been the
Right.
first like 2 years were, pretty marred with pandemic and all that stuff. But,
Right.
finally kind of, getting to the point where we can talk to these players one-on-one and,
Exactly.
here we are doing this thing via the internet.
Right.
But
Well, we've been talking to practice though.
I
So
was going to
yeah.
say, I've seen you a million times at practice this year. So,
Right.
that's great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I know it's hard for me to do a podcast when there was no sports. I
Yeah.
I mean, I could just not do one. That's your job. How hard was that, especially when you just got here, to
Well,
try to do a sports broadcast? Well, there's no sports.
yeah, I mean, it's like we were trying to, the way I looked at it from the very beginning is I was like, I think our jobs are, I wasn't ready to like hold up the white flag and be like, well, I don't have anything to talk about. So
Right.
I quit. I was like, I think our jobs become just as valuable, just in different ways, because it's like you got all the athletes don't go away, like the sports have gone away, but the athletes don't go away. So how can we tell their stories effectively and talk about how they're going through these times? Because I mean, yeah, there might have been a point in time where it felt like sports were not going to come back and they were never going to be
Tell me
back,
about it.
and we
Yeah.
were never going to be able to sit in Great American Ballpark or
Mhm.
Paul Brown Paycor Stadium again. But it's back now, and it was like in that time, it was like there are still stories to tell here. So
Right.
that's kind of what I tried to hang my hat on, during that time. But
Yeah.
It was
I
tough.
think,
Sure.
yeah, I think you guys did a great job. Like I said, it was hard to do this, because I was basically just talking to myself on there, and you can at least go interview people and stuff. So I think you guys did a great job. And like I said, I'm so happy that we're all back together again and we're normal, and I can actually go down to open practice, and I finally got to actually meet you and stuff. And the funny thing is, I always like to bring this up is the conversations that we have with people down there, and what got you and me really talking was the Jackpot Joey stuff. You walked up, and we said hi before or whatever. Sure. We walked up and said, "Hey, are you the guy who does the Jackpot Joey stuff?" I said, "Yeah." And then you said, "Yeah, I was in the locker room," and it's all over the locker room. So who are you interviewing?
Yeah, so it was last week. I was it was funny because I had seen you wearing the hat, and then and it was funny. It was just kind of coincidental. It was like the next day I was in the locker room interviewing. It was Cam Taylor-Britt, one of the new defensive backs there that they drafted. He's out of Nebraska, so he had it in his locker, and I'm thinking he's a rookie, so he probably doesn't have a full grasp of everything, what it means and where it came from and everything like that. And I was like, "Hey, you got the Jackpot Joey hat there." And he turned around. He was like, "Yeah." He said Travion was handing those out, and he gave me one. He was like, "I got to have that." And and I'm paraphrasing. It's something along the lines of that is what he said. He was like, "I got to have that." And he actually did say to me, he said that he's interested in knowing. He said he didn't know the story behind it or where it came from, but he said he's interested. He said he wants to. He truly said he wants to know the story behind it or whatever, where it came from. And I know obviously like some of the money. Now I obviously better than I do, but I know some of the money goes to
the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund. Yeah,
correct.
Portions of it go to that. Yeah, and well, the story. If you don't know, I can tell you the story. The story is Matty Myers, who's actually his idea. I'm just the hype guy, basically. Yeah. But when Joe Burrow was drafted, he got excited. He goes, "Well, that's a jackpot for the city of Cincinnati." Well, then his daughter-in-law goes, "Well, you should trademark that. That's a great nickname for him." Whatever. The next day she's like really hounding him, like, "You should do that. That's a good nickname." He's like, "All right." So he went and trademarked it, and it took like a year, and he finally got it. He completely forgot about it. Finally got it back or whatever. And he got it trademarked and all this stuff. And he really wanted to help, since he did this, like, we really wanted to help out. He was inspired by what Joe said with, his speech and for his Heisman trophy. So I wanted to help him out. So, he loved Joe, loves the Bengals, liked the nickname, already trademarked it, went and got the logo and everything, and started selling the stuff and bugged the crap out of me on my show. Basically, so much for, because I kept calling him Joe freaking Burrow, was what I was calling him.
Yeah.
He's like, his name is Jackpot. His name is Jackpot. I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, okay. They go, it's trademarked. I'm like, oh, all right, well, trademarked it. Cool. I'll call him Jackpot. Yeah. So that's how me and him kind of got into it. And then I found out he's doing with the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund, and it's kind of went from there. And it's pretty cool. We would go down to the camps last year, training camp, and hand it out to the players and everything, and they loved it. T. Higgins, if I get his name right, T. Higgins is the first one to wear the hat. Actually, this is the one he was wearing, and he wore it on at the press conference. So it's kind of grown from there, and it's pretty cool. I mean, Joe knows about it. His parents know about it. I mean, Jimmy Burrow even said that Jackpot's his favorite nickname. So that was a pretty big moment when that happened. Yeah. Joe, I don't think will ever wear the stuff because that's just not him. He's not going to wear something that has his name on it. But it's pretty cool. And so yeah, if I get down there, I'll try to tell Cam the story. Or if you're interviewing him next time, you can tell him the story.
Maybe if you like get one of the logos and just cover it in like real legitimate diamonds and put it on a chain, he would maybe wear it.
He might do that. He might do that. I don't have that kind of jack right now.
I don't know.
I'm not there yet. The podcast is not that big yet, Caleb. I'm working on it, man.
Getting there. It's getting there. Probably will be after today. No.
Yeah. Definitely. We got Caleb on here. It's going to blow up after this, dude. Right. So let's talk about what you tweeted out yesterday. You mentioned it early in this broadcast that it's no longer Paul Brown Stadium. I mean, I think we'll all still call it that. It's Paycor or Payjoe or the Core, whatever you want to call it, but it's Paycor Stadium. And you tweeted out a video of them actually taking the letters down. And that was I was like, wow, seriously. I quote tweeted, I'm like, wow, it's like that was quick of how that happened. Now, what do you think this means for the Bengals? I mean, we all know it's just Pay Joe, but it's just a sign of the Bengals moving forward, or how do you feel about the name change?
I don't know if there's any. I really don't know if there's any way. And I mean, tell me if so. I don't know if there's any way you can look at it other than it's the Bengals moving forward. Mike Brown, when we spoke to him before the season, over at the media luncheon, he seemed pretty open-minded to it, and he was pretty straightforward. He was like, if this is something where the Bengals can benefit off of this, this is him saying, he
Right.
said that he felt his dad,
Right.
his father, Paul Brown, would have been all for that. He actually, one of the most interesting things I thought he said was, he said that his view of his father's name being on the stadium is different than what most people would expect. And again, I paraphrase here, but he said, he thought his father, Paul Brown, would see his name being on the stadium as, like, I'm trying to think of the words he put it in. I think he said ballyhooing himself. And he would not, and his father would not have liked that.
Right.
Would not have liked the
attention.
idea.
He didn't want attention.
The attention on his name and on him or whatever. So again, I mean, the point of bringing all that up is to say that I don't, it seemed like Mike Brown was really open to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a sign of the team moving forward. Is it weird? Is it going to be weird, like not having Paul Brown Stadium up there? Yeah, it's going to be really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's pretty standard these days. And like you look at TQL Stadium when it was first announced that it was going to be called TQL Stadium, I think people were like, TQL, what do we think of that? Do we like that? And then like 2 months later, it's just like, okay, it's TQL Stadium.
Right.
I think it'll probably eventually be like that here too. It's like eventually, once we get it, ingrained into our vocabulary, it's just Paycor Stadium. I will tell you, yesterday on TV, I was recording something for TV, and the first time through, I said, "Hey, I'm here at Paul Brown Stadium, blah blah blah," and my videographer Philip was like, "It's Paycor," and I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, you taught me there. I was like, thank you. So, I mean, and I'm sure that won't be the last time. I mean, but again, it's like once it's ingrained in your vocabulary, it's like, Riverfront Stadium is Synergy Field. And it's like, once you get used to that, you may always call it Riverfront, but after a while, you get used to calling it Synergy.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think people are more okay with it because of the effect that it's going to have on the future of the Bengals. Now, one thing I haven't got a chance to talk about this. I've talked to other people about the name change. But one thing I think is interesting, and I think this bodes well for the Bengals staying here long term. It's a 16-year deal that they have with Paycor. So that goes beyond the lease that they have with the city to stay in Paul Brown, or I just did Paul Brown, in Paycor Stadium. So for all this noise that, the Bengals might leave after the lease is up, well, they just committed, for 16 years. If they got to get out of it, they're going to write Paycor a huge check to get out of it. So to me, that means that the Bengals are all in and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, sure. So if nothing else, you're saying if nothing else, it's a type of thing where, fans can at least hold on to that and say, this helps with my confidence that, I can sit back and relax a little bit when it comes to that noise.
Yeah, they're committed. They're committed to the city, so that's a good thing. And I mean, you not only got the name rights to the stadium, you got the Ultra Fiber gate. I think they're gonna do some other. They got a betting. It's not Bet Jack. I can't remember what the other one that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's gonna be probably one of the other gates. So all the gates are gonna get named, and it's gonna be different stuff. So it's gonna look a lot different this year. But that's the Bengals moving into the 21st century, and it's about time.
If you want the franchise to move forward and progress, let's be honest, like these things are hard, man. Like, I mean, we like Paul Brown, like is a massive figure to this franchise. I mean, he brought this franchise into existence. So I think the symbolism of what was happening yesterday, if you want to look at it in that light, which is the letters being taken down, Paul Brown's name being taken down off the stadium, as in terms of the name of the stadium. Like, let's not forget, his name's still on the stadium. Like,
it's in the Ring of Honor and in the jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. And that's true too. Yeah, it's in the back of the jerseys. It's up on the Ring of Honor now. So it's not like his name was removed or
Right.
whatever, taken off entirely from the stadium. It's not like his name was removed from the face of the franchise.
Right.
Um, but I think the symbolism of like actually seeing it happen, like you were talking about the video that I posted or whatever, like seeing those letters taken off and on the ground was a little bit like, I don't know. I mean, it kind of hits you in a weird way. It's like, oh, this is really happening.
Yeah.
We're seeing it happen. But again, it's like once you show up to the gates week 1
Yeah.
or whatever, or this Friday or whatever, and you see Paycor or whatever up there, it's gonna feel normal. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the biggest thing for all this is so the Bengals can get this guaranteed money that they got to give Jackpot next year because you know that's all I keep hearing about is how much money they got to put in escrow, and I am not a man.
Next year's when he becomes eligible for that extension. You're talking about Joe Burrow, and yeah, I mean it'll be interesting to see what they do, especially with the new. Yeah, I mean, we say it every year, like, oh, the salaries are going up and this and that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you look at what some of these guys have been paid, Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray, and I mean, yeah, it's going to continue to go up. It's going to go up again next year, and then it's going to go up. I'm sure that. I mean, it's one of those things, and these players at certain positions, quarterback, and whatever, so on and so forth, like, they want that bar to continue to raise. Right. Obviously, of course they do. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Bengals do there.
Exactly. So speaking of Joe Burrow, he was seen throwing, lightly tossing this week, and everybody got excited about it, including myself. And he's been seen like yesterday. He drove in on the golf cart, but he got up and stood and watched practice. I mean, he looks like he's getting better. Jimmy Burrow said on Dave Lappin's podcast be a couple weeks, and people freaked out. Like, oh my God, a couple weeks. I'm like, well, a couple weeks could be next week. It's just a saying. I don't think Jimmy knows, how far out it's going to be.
Yeah, a couple weeks, 14 days.
Yeah, exactly. That's literally a couple weeks. So that's the Rams.
So you're saying he's going to be playing in 14 days? Is that what you're telling me right here?
That's what it sounds like.
So I will break that news on TV tonight, and I'll cite your name for it.
Strawberry Ice says it's going to be in 14 days.
Yep.
But I don't think Joe's not going to play the preseason anyway. So I think it's more the practices that he's missing is kind of hurting a little bit. But he missed stuff last year, recovering from injury. I'm not worried about him. I mean, what's your take on Joe and the appendectomy?
Let's not forget there was no preseason in 2020.
Right. Yes.
I mean, he went into his rookie season cold. No preseason whatsoever. No real game snaps whatsoever. And then last year, again, he's recovering from that knee injury. And then this year, here's what I said the other day. I think there's a certain part of Joe Burrow that like relishes this, man. Like, I think he wants you to doubt him. I think he wants you to think, oh, this guy's not going to be this is not going to be the Joe Burrow of 2021. He's not getting valuable preseason snaps. He's not going to be moving like himself on the field. He's going to be rusty week 1. Like, I think Joe Burrow wants you to think that.
Yep.
Like, I think he's like in his own mind, he's like, I'm about to prove some people wrong. And because, like, let's be honest, like Joe Burrow is at his best when he feels like he's got something to prove. Like when he feels like it's all on the line, or when he feels like he's got something to prove, that's when Joe Burrow's at his best. So this is my own commentary. Joe Burrow hasn't.
You're preaching to the choir, brother. I agree with everything you're saying right now.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Burrow hasn't said this. He hasn't said anything.
No.
But this is just my thought is like, I think Joe Burrow is like internally making this his, how people do. It's like, whether that's actually what people like, is anybody really going to be surprised if Joe Burrow goes out and throws for 1,000,000 yards this year and leads the Bengals to the Super Bowl? Like, I mean, obviously, like it's never an easy path to the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but is anybody really going to be shocked if that happens? No. But I think in Joe Burrow's mind, he's like, I'm about to prove everybody wrong here. Like I think it's one of those mental things.
Yeah, that's one thing we love about him. It's always, and that's the thing is these guys always need that edge. I mean, I hate to say it, but Tom Brady has always been the 5th, 6th round pick, or whatever he was, doubted, and he's used that chip on his shoulder for 20.
That's a good way to put
years.
it. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where I think Joe gets a lot of comparison to Tom Brady in that aspect, not anywhere close to winning.
Well, and think about over the last 5 years of his life or whatever, like all the things that have kind of played into that. Because it's like there's the other side of it too, where it's like this guy. What do you mean he's got a chip on his shoulder? He put together the best college football season of anybody in the history of the freaking game of college football.
Right.
What do you mean he's got a chip on his shoulder? Well, but you go back to the Ohio State stuff. It didn't work out for him at Ohio State.
Yep.
He goes down. He considers for a period of time, like, what am I going to do when football's over for me?
Right.
What am I going to, what about if, am I going to end up in the Canadian Football League? Like, what happens here? Then he goes to LSU and sets the freaking college football world on fire. But again, chip on your shoulder. Didn't work out at Ohio State. There you go. Then he comes into the NFL. He's got the pandemic, no preseason. Everybody's talking about how the rookies are not going to be able to succeed in the NFL. And I know, obviously, his first season was rough in terms of that injury.
Right.
But even that season,
he was balling out. He was just starting to get hot.
They may have only won 4 games that season, but there were signs of like, this guy's going to be pretty dang good.
Right.
And then coming off that knee injury, you talk about, again, chip on your shoulder. Like, is Joe Burrow ever going to be the quarterback that we thought he could be coming off this injury? And by God, he leads them to the Super Bowl. So again, to say that Joe Burrow can't have a chip on his shoulder because he's whatever, I think Joe Burrow is going to have a chip on his shoulder. And I think that's that edge. I don't know about chip on his shoulder. I think edge is the right way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just like they're saying this year, last year wasn't a fluke, and that's kind of the thing, the mantra I think they're going with this year. Cause I know Mike Hilton has been on everybody else's podcast except mine so far. Shout out, Mike. I know you're coming on my podcast sometime soon, but he's been out there big time saying, that last year wasn't a fluke. And I think that's the mindset of this whole team too. It gives them an edge, gives a chip on their shoulder or something, and that's what competitors need to just keep that, and I think that's really going to help this team, to be honest.
I would agree with you. And I mean, I don't know. I've always been the type of guy who, like, I don't know. I've always been I was an athlete growing up. And I think as a competitor, you do. I think it helps to have that edge, right? Have that edge of like, I might be, I might have won this game, or I might have done this, or we might have succeeded in this, but but we can be better.
Right.
But, they don't think I can be this or that. I mean, did the Bengals, remember the whole discussion last year when they were heading to the Super Bowl was like, are the Bengals a year early? Like, did the Bengals arrive early?
Right.
Maybe. I mean, honestly, like when you look back,
right.
It's like, maybe like when you look at teams' windows for success, it's like, realistically, the Bengals window was probably like this year should have been like where that window was wide open. And I think the window is wide open now.
Absolutely.
Last year, I struggle to say they were early, but I hesitate to say they were early. But yeah, I don't think their window was as big last year, and they found a way. I maintain this. I said this during the playoffs, and I'll say this now, and I'll say this forever. I'll say this if you ask me in 30 years. One reason the Bengals were capable of making that run that they did last year was they stayed so healthy throughout the season and throughout the playoffs. And I'm not here to say like, oh, they wouldn't have made it if, because let's be honest, like CJ Uzomah got injured in the AFC Championship game, early in the AFC Championship game. They had other injuries leading up to that too.
Reef and Larry Ogunjobi.
Ogunjobi is very good point. Yep. So they had some injuries. Obviously, Joe Burrow is coming off that injury to start the season. So, but all in all, generally speaking, the Bengals were remarkably healthy last season. And when you can get into the playoffs and have your ones, for the most part, on the field, that's going to be beneficial to you because you're not talking about, getting other guys up to speed. You're not talking about mixing a new guy in into things. So I think, if the Bengals can stay healthy again, that's key number one. That is absolutely key number one. We can talk about Jesse Bates. We can talk about, all these other things. We could talk about the O-line. Obviously, I mean, these are all big things.
Right,
I'm not
right.
downplaying those things. But for me, key number one is staying healthy.
I couldn't agree with you more there. And I think that goes to a lot of credit to Zach Taylor, because I know last year everybody gave him all kinds of crap about ending not training camp, but I think it was mini camp. I think it's what he ended like a week earlier or whatever. Like, what are you doing? Why are you ending it early? Well, he wants to rest them. It's more important to be healthy through the season. As you point in case, you just said, we had been injured. We might not have made that run. When you have your number ones and it's touted as number ones as we have, that helps too. But health is best ability is availability, and the Bengals were available last year all year. And so I think that goes a lot to Zach Taylor. And a lot of people were questioning how his makeup was, about how he treated the health of the players, because the year before that we did have a lot of injuries. I mean, it just happens. Now, hopefully, knock on wood, we won't have a lot of injuries this year and we can make the run again. But you never know. But I do think it has a lot to do with the way Zach coaches the players and how football has totally changed. I mean,
well, physical health is like the great equalizer, man. And I think coaches, specifically like strength and conditioning coaches, have been trying to figure out for like decades, how do we make this a more, what's the word? A more, I don't know what the word that I'm trying to think of is here. How do we turn this into a science?
Right.
As opposed to it being so fluky in terms of like injuries and stuff. Because I mean, those it's football. It's a physical game. You're going to have those freak injuries. Like Joe Burrow's injury.
Yeah.
Pretty freak injury. Now, he got hit a bunch of times that season, and I think the general thought was like, if he continues to get hit like this, he's going to get hurt. And then he got hurt.
Well, he got hit a bunch last year too.
Yeah, and I think people were worried about that. But I think that the conversation among like strength and conditioning coaches and athletic trainers for years, if not decades, has been, how do we turn this into a science where we can legitimately say this or that or this or that is, we can tell you with 100% certainty this is going to help your injury situation. Like, is it stretching a certain way at the beginning of practice? Is it a certain type of treatment that we do after practice? Is it, a certain period of rest time throughout the day? Is it a certain, what is it to where we can say this is going to ensure 100% that you're going to be more healthy than you would have been otherwise? And there's a lot of elements to that. But at the end of the day, again, it's football, man. It's physical. You're going to have those freak injuries here and there. You just got to hope that, that doesn't happen. I mean, that's one of the things about this game, about the game of football, that you really just got to hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And if it does happen, then you hope the next man up can be the next man up and step up.
They have that depth. And that's something that the Bengals have talked about a lot this offseason, is that, how can we build and develop depth on this, whether it's the offensive line, which is the area that you need the most depth a lot of times, or the defensive line. Again, the area that a lot of times you need the most depth, because those guys are inherently just hitting every single play of every game. And
they're a car wreck every play.
Up. Yeah, right. So it's like, how do you develop depth there? And in football, a lot of times I think depth is one of the most important equalizing factors.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. Now we talk about Ted Karras and Kappa and Collins, who was cleared for practice yesterday for the first time. Yeah. But Jackson Carman, he's a second-round pick for the Bengals last year. Tried him at right guard, didn't work out that well last year. He's going to left guard this year. But from what I've seen down there, it looks like he's out there with the ones 99% of the time. I don't see a whole lot of trading off there. I mean, is it still a competition? I know they haven't said that it's not, but it doesn't look like much of a competition to me.
Well, you got to think, man, there's still 3 preseason games left. And one thing that head coach Zach Taylor said, and when I say 3 preseason games, I mean the entire preseason. There's still the entire preseason game, left. One thing head coach Zach Taylor said to us yesterday in the press conference is that specifically the first preseason game. Now, I don't know if it'll necessarily be this way for the third. There's always an element in the preseason of evaluation and competition and stuff. Competition with another team, yeah, but competition even within your own team. How do these guys perform when the lights come on?
Right.
I think that some of that is probably going to be, I say probably, that's definitely going to be a factor. When the lights come on, which of these guys can handle those situations, when they're under fire? And this is something Luke Fickell said the other day at Bearcats practice. He said the biggest factor for his quarterback competition is decision making. And he went on to say, specifically, what I'm looking for is who can make the best decisions when they are under fire in a game-like situation, and in these high pressure situations, who can make these split-second smart decisions, who can make the right decision, the right call in that moment. That's who's going to be quarterback for us. And I think it's a good answer, but it's the right answer.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not the head coach of any team or whatever, but in my mind, that's the right answer. And I think for the Bengals, when you're talking about, whether it's Jackson Carman or the young guy Volson, which I think, people are hoping will at least compete, are hoping that will at the very least push Jackson.
Yes.
Here in the preseason and throughout this his rookie year. He's a rookie out of North Dakota State, offensive lineman.
And his family, he grew up with his family working on the railroad too. So he's as we say, country strong.
Country strong. That's right. I think that's going to be an evaluation that's going to happen during the preseason. I really do. I mean, you can, Zach Taylor made the point yesterday in his press conference. He was like, we practice for a reason. We obviously evaluate things at practice, and we have a reason why we do things a certain way. And, but there's certain things that you can only see again when the lights come on, when the fans are there and you're playing against an opponent.
Right. So you got to interview LC yesterday, along with everybody else there after practice. Is he tired of answering questions about his back? I mean, how is he feeling about his back and everything? What did he say on there?
Frankly, I think he's tired of answering questions in general, and I say that not to that's not. I don't say that to criticize him at all. I mean, that's not a criticism. That's just I think he's ready to play football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're offensive linemen, man. They're supposed to be forgot about,
Well, and that's what Frank Pollock, the offensive line coach, said to us in an interview. I think it was last week. He was like, we don't want the attention. He was like, we want Joe Mixon and, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and Tyler Boyd and Hayden, whatever. We want those guys getting the attention. He was like, this was his words. He said, we want to be an afterthought. He said, I want all of our guys on the O-line to be a total afterthought, because if we're an afterthought, that means we're doing our job.
Yeah, exactly. Now, how cool is it though to cover Frank Pollock? Because I mean, this guy who came up with the glass eaters, he came up with the shit in their neck, or however he put it. Like, how cool is it covering him? I just getting his quotes.
Can you give me just a second here, man? I'm sorry to interrupt this podcast. I have to plug in my computer.
Go for it, man.
Otherwise, this podcast is not going to continue.
That's all right. That happens.
You don't continue with just you, but it would.
Sure. Hey, trust me.
I'm sure you could hold down the fort, man. You've been to as many Bengals practices as anybody else out there, and I mean, I give you major props for that. So,
well, I appreciate that. Trust me, I've been on this podcast before talking to myself, so I'm pretty good at that. But I just think Frank Pollock is I get a kick out of what the comments and everything that he's given you guys, and I think it's fun just waiting for what he's going to say next. That's what so a guy who covers him. How do you feel about it?
My favorite thing that Frank Pollock said to us was a week and a half ago. The word that I keep asking, or the word I keep hearing from all the offensive linemen. I think it was Alex Kappa said it first, and then LC said it. And I think one of the other O linemen said it too. And so I was like, I keep hearing this word, and that word was communication. I keep hearing this word because it's like, yeah, and I get it. It makes sense. Like you can if you can play O-line, you can play O-line. Like LC's
Right.
a veteran in this league. Ted Karras, veteran in this league. They know what they're doing. They know how to play offensive line. But how are you meshing with those other guys, specifically in terms of communication? Because the offensive line, the thing about it is like you've got to be on the same page. Like you have to be on the same page and working as a unit. It can't be like one guy misses his assignment, and it doesn't matter what the other 10 guys on the field are doing. It doesn't matter if the other 10 guys are playing as a unit. One guy misses his assignment. That's the beautiful thing about football, but also the wild thing about football is that, like, it doesn't matter if 10 guys are on the same page. If one's not, the play might be dead. So got to have those guys communicating effectively. So anyway, so back to the point, back to your question. I asked Frank Pollock about communication and learning that language that you have to be speaking together. And he kind of like, he was like, yeah, football is a language of its own. He said, some of our guys have learned, and he went off on like this tangent. It was awesome. It was like my favorite thing. He was like, some of our guys have been speaking Spanish before. Some of our guys have been over here speaking French. Other of our guys have been speaking, Chinese. I know how to speak, he reeled off like 8 different languages like that. He was like, I can speak this. He was like, once you've been coaching for a long time, you learn how to speak this. And he's listing like real languages. He's like, you learn how to speak like German and Finnish and like Swedish. And he's like listing off all these. And then he got to his point. He was like, we're trying to teach all of our guys how to speak Bengalese. I was like, thank the Lord he said that, because I was like waiting for it. I was like, what language is he going to say?
Bengalese.
I was like, what language is he going to come up with that he wants to teach people? And he was like, Bengalese. And I was like, perfect. I was like, Bengalese, like.
I'm sure since these shirts will have a shirt come out that says I speak Bengalese now or something.
Bengalese, yes. That's the language that Frank Pollock wants them to learn. But no, I mean, he seems like the type of guy. He is the type of guy, like you said, where you're like, what is this guy going to say next?
Right.
But at the same time, like, it all makes sense too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like this guy is just talking crazy. I mean, I joke about him saying like, coming up with 10 different languages and whatever, but it makes sense. Like it really does make sense.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. That's what I think is so cool. He does come up with these great lines and his great commentary stuff, but it does make sense. Everything he says makes perfect sense to me, and I'm sure it makes sense to the offensive lineman. So I mean, I think he would be a really good guy, fun guy to cover. I mean, because some of the other guys on the Bengals coaching staff, it's like they have personalities, but not like Frank. Frank's different than everybody else.
Frank's different. He's but not in a bad way. I mean, he's different in a good way where you're like, I can get with that,
Exactly. So this coaching staff, they're coming off of going to the Super Bowl, and most times, you at least lose 1, 2, 3 of your assistant coaches. They have everybody, all 4 of the coordinators. They added a couple coaches, but they have all 4 of the coordinators coming back. How big of a move is that all 4 of them are there?
I think internally between themselves, that is a positive, because they're not having to get a coach up to speed. Because you think about all the factors of having to get a coach up to speed. It's not just like, that new coach learning a system, but it's that coach learning a system and then having to translate that system to all of his players in his position group or on his side of the ball or whatever it might be. Having to get that guy up to speed enough to where he can legitimately be a coach, and to where he's not, learning what the players already know, things that the players already know. But then on top of that, it's like you think about the players and the position that puts them in. I'm like, honestly, that's a huge thing. It's a huge thing that maybe hasn't been talked about enough, is the continuity of having coaches in place. Because as a player, what you're getting. There's not that, like, I don't know, honeymoon period or like figuring out period of like where you're trying to figure out who this person is and what they're all about. And then, because it's like anything else, like you start a new job and, you know, you're
You got to figure
there.
out your coworkers. You got to figure this out. You got to figure out what
Yeah,
time you're supposed to be where. Or how, oh, yeah, I understand
you
what you're
can
saying.
do the job and, you can meet the people, but like, do you really have like a real true trust and relationship for those people on day one? You can't.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
Right.
you just can't. But once you've been working at a place for a year and a half, you start to develop that trust and those relationships with people where you know what you're able to go and talk to them about, and because I mean we're talking like off the field football type stuff,
Right.
here,
Right.
And so I think it's important. I think it's having continuity in terms of coaching and stuff like that is very, very important because again, as a player at the very end of the day, like as a player, you know what you're getting from your
Right.
coach. You know what to expect going into practice. You know what to expect going into meetings. So yeah, I think that's obviously a very important thing.
Yeah, not only is it with the coaches, but the players and the cool thing I think that I've noticed with the players, and I don't know if you got to listen or watch the Pivot podcast where T and Jamar and TB were on that podcast, but just listen to those three talk and how you can tell they genuinely care about each other, and this team throughout the whole team, I genuinely doesn't care who gets what. I mean, I think T said that on this podcast that he really wants all three of them to get 1,000 yards. Jamar wants to go get the Triple Crown. He wants, do what Cooper Kupp did. Those are gold. They all want to win the Super Bowl, obviously. But just to hear them talk and how they like going out and hanging out, that's another thing that comes with continuity of they're comfortable with each other. They're comfortable with the coaching staff. They're comfortable with everything. And these guys are still young. We still got a young team, but it's a young veteran team. It's getting to the point where it's not just we're not rookies anymore. We're in the second, third year, and they know the system. They know each other, and it's just there's a lot of good stuff going on with this team. I know it's kind of a jumbled up question, I guess I put here, but more of the continuity of the team and the camaraderie of the team is important. And have you seen? I guess my question is: have you seen other teams like this close? It seems like a family to me.
So the one thing I'd have to think about, like other teams, having seen other teams that close, but the one thing that really stands out to me about the Bengals, obviously Jamar Chase is, a ridiculous athletic specimen, and
yes.
T. Higgins is, interestingly, T. Higgins is from the Knoxville area in Tennessee,
yes.
Oak Ridge High School. I moved here from Knoxville, so
right.
I was very familiar with T. Higgins and his high school football coach and his high school basketball coach.
He was a baller in basketball too. I've seen videos of it.
So I interviewed his high school basketball coach. This is years ago. This is before I ever moved to Cincinnati. This is when I lived in Knoxville, and interviewed his high school basketball coach. And the one thing I'll never forget him saying is he was like, T. Higgins is the only guy I've ever met who, if you told me, so we were in the basketball arena at his high school, and you know how high school gyms a lot of times will have like the hardwood, and then like on the second level they'll have like a walking track around it with the bars on it or whatever. He said T. Higgins is the only guy I've ever met who, if you told me he stood on that hardwood and just jumped up onto the second level of the walking track, I would believe you. Like I wouldn't even argue with you. There's just like all these stories about T. Higgins back there where like, again, he's like a freak athlete.
Yes.
And then Joe Burrow has like obviously that it factor and the edge about him and stuff. So there's all these things, but here's the thing. Tyler Boyd doesn't get talked about a whole lot.
He does not.
But if you go in that locker room, he does.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd, I think, is a major glue guy for that receiving core. I think he's a major glue guy for the team.
Yeah.
But especially for that receiving core. People want to talk about what it is about the Bengals receivers. And again, it's like we can talk about Jamar and his, ridiculous abilities. We can talk about T and his ridiculous athleticism and, just size and everything else, and intangible. But like Tyler Boyd, there's something about him that becomes that glue. And here's the other thing: T. Higgins won a national championship in college.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Chase won a national championship in college. Joe Burrow won a national championship in college. We're not talking about, I'm not diminishing the value of a conference championship.
Right.
Certainly in the SEC or the ACC or whatever, what have you. These guys won national championships.
Yep.
In college. Like, they're winners. Like, people talk about Joe Burrow and his winning abilities and the factor about him that just makes him a winner. But let's not forget, Jamar Chase was on that team too. I mean, we all know that.
Right.
Don't forget, T. Higgins won a national championship at Clemson too.
Yep.
And that's something that I think that the coaching staff has wanted to bring in over the last few years is guys that have been proven winners over the last several years. But those are two things that I think are, I don't know about less talked about, but two things that I think are big factors here is that you've got winners, first of all, on that team. You've got legitimate winners on that team. And then I think Tyler Boyd is such a glue guy for that locker room.
Absolutely. And that goes to the factor of what Zach Taylor said when we first got here. We want to get the right guys in the building, and they're winners, and they have the winning mindset, and they're, like you said, Tyler Boyd was here before Zach out here. Obviously, he's one of the only few guys that are left over from that. But I agree with the glue guy thing, and I can't emphasize it enough of how these guys are so genuinely humble. I mean, legitimately, and I don't throw that out there, nonchalantly, but they are there because they got, obviously they have some cockiness to themselves because you have to be to play at that level, but they have some humbleness to them, and a lot of that, like Tyler Boyd, he could have just said, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, I'm the veteran, I was the guy here before you guys got here, but he didn't. Like I said, he doesn't get talked about enough.
And instead, he's the guy taking these guys out and buying their whatever, whatever for them. Like, he's the guy that's treating these guys.
Yes.
It's not like you should be treating me because I'm the veteran. He's like, no, let me take care of you.
Exactly. And that's why I love about this team. Just that stuff right there is you don't always get that. And these guys, to get that at this young age, I know TB's a little older, but to get that and understand what they have here and how it's working is just very unique. I think for especially the amount of guys, like almost all of them are like that. Because I grew up here, we had the 90s where the Bengals stunk, and then we had the Marvin years where we had a bunch of knuckleheads half time on the team. I still loved them, but we had guys that just got to do dumb crap. We don't have that with these guys. I mean, they don't like I said on the Pivot podcast, they're talking about this, Joe go out. They're like, nah, Joe don't go out. Joe just stays home. You want to kick it with him, you can go to his house and hang out with him, but he doesn't go anywhere. I mean, that's the thing. It's like these guys are all about ball. They're all about business. They're all about just winning, and taking care of each other. And you just don't get that. I just can't say that. You don't get that everywhere.
Head coach Zach Taylor yesterday in his press conference, one thing that I think was really interesting that he brought up was that they have two rules. And those two rules are be on time, which I will have I was logged in here at 9:57 this morning for your 10 o'clock podcast. So I was definitely following that rule. I was on time. Yes. The other, so be on time is the first rule. The second rule is protect the team.
Yeah.
And I it was something along those lines, but it was protect the team.
Right.
And think about that. It's like, and he kind of went into that. And again, I paraphrase, I could bring up when he actually said it too, but think about that. He even went into it a little bit and was like, we want our guys to have their individual personalities. We want our guys to feel like they want to go out and have a good time. Like we see Joe Burrow, front row at the UFC events and stuff like that. He's like, we want our guys to he didn't say that. That's me saying that.
Right.
He's like, we want our guys to be able to feel like they can be themselves and go out there and have a good time and
just don't embarrass the team,
live their lives. But just don't do anything that hurts the team. Don't do anything that embarrasses the team. Don't do anything that hurts the team. Don't do anything, that you shouldn't be doing. and be on time. Like that's the two golden rules of
Right.
Bengals football.
And they're great golden rules, and they're working so far. So let's give me almost 50 minutes. Actually, 50 minutes. We just hit that mark here. Let's pivot toward the Bearcats, because you did bring that up a little bit. That they're coming off, going to the first non-Power 5 school to go to the college football playoffs. They're moving to the Big 12 after this year, and we have a quarterback competition, and we lost a ton of players.
Yeah, like 30 something guys.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's quarterback competition look like? How are the guys that we have to replace? The secondary, we don't have Sauce, we don't have Kobe Bryant. We lost a lot of players. How are they looking out there? I haven't heard a whole lot going on. Oh, I've heard, but what's your opinion? How are they doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, they look different, man. I mean, they look different. They still look good. Yeah. And I think anybody who says the Bearcats are just going to fall off a cliff, like that's not going to happen. Not under Fickle's watch. No way Fickle's going to let them just fall off a cliff. And they've still got talent, man. They've still got talent. It might be kind of younger talent, but they've still got talent. You talk about the quarterback competition. So two guys, Ben Bryant, who was at Cincinnati. Yep. It basically lost the quarterback competition to Desmond Ridder. Which turned out okay in the long run for Cincinnati.
pretty good idea for the Bearcats.
But yeah, transferred to Eastern Michigan. Was in another quarterback competition there. Won that quarterback competition. Was the legitimate, starter at Eastern Michigan. Put together a really good season last year. Not like he was a Heisman Trophy winner or anything, but put together a very good, solid season at Eastern Michigan last year. Then transfers back to Cincinnati. And so I think the interesting thing about Ben Bryant is, I mean, this is not like a transfer that you have to spend 8 months, getting him acclimated to the new system. Like he knows it. He knows the coaches. He knows a lot of the other players on the team. So it's like he's a transfer, but he's hardly a new guy. But then you've got Evan Prater, who's a local kid out of Wyoming High School, won Mr. Football senior year of high school, just, was one heck of a player here in high school, one of the better players to maybe ever come out of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Young guy, probably, over the last couple of years has needed some refining. And that's something that, in terms of like his passing abilities and stuff like that, but that's something that Gino Guidugli, the offensive coordinator for the Bearcats, has already told us during fall camp, is that he's come a long way. He said, Evan's come a long way. And even Evan himself told us earlier this week, he said, when I was in high school, the play would break down and I would just be like, oh, whatever, and again, I paraphrase, but like, oh, I'll just take off and use my legs because I got that ability. But like in college, a little bit of a different thing. Like sometimes you got to wait it out a little more. Sometimes you got to be a little more patient back there in the pocket. And, it goes back to that decision-making that I was talking about earlier, which head coach Luke Fickell said is going to be the biggest factor in his mind for who plays quarterback. Evan Prater's really developed his decision-making skills back in the pocket. And that's him saying that, but that's also Gino Guidugli saying that. That's also something Luke Fickell has said. Luke Fickell said, it's gone a little bit back and forth early on in fall camp. He said, sometimes he sees plays that Evan makes and he's just like, man, just kind of makes him take a step back. And one thing I thought was interesting, and I've said this for months, I was really glad when Gino Guidugli said it, because it was like validation for what I've been saying for months. I was like, okay, good. I'm not crazy here. But he said that Evan Prater reminds him of Desmond Ridder. I was like, good. Thank the Lord that you said that, because I've been saying that for like 6, 7, 8 months. I've been saying that for maybe a year.
And
I'm like, am I crazy for saying that? Because like it, but really, like when you watch him out there, there's certain things about Evans, even his personality, like his charisma and his personality, and even like some of his movements on the field where you're like, that just reminds me of Desmond Ridder. Like there's something about Evan Prater where you're like, he has that like Ridder factor about him. Maybe again, maybe a little less refined at this point. But I say that knowing that like Desmond Ridder was somewhat unrefined early on in his career.
Right.
And then really, really worked and put that together. Look, man, I said before preseason camp for the Bearcats at Higher Ground, I said that they probably want to have a quarterback named, give or take August 15th, like,
Mm-hmm.
mid-August or at the very latest, like August 20th. I'll be honest with you, like, this might be one of those things where we're in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we're like, who's going to run out there?
It's that close, you think, huh?
It's like, all right, the Bearcats are getting the ball first.
Right.
Arkansas kicks off. The Bearcats return it to the whatever yard line or
Yeah.
to touchback or whatever. All right, 1st and 10 Bearcats. Who's running out there?
Right.
Like, honestly, I really think it might come down to that.
Wow. The only thing I hope he actually makes a decision. Obviously, I want to make the right decision, and I don't ever want to keep switching back and forth. I know in college football they've had quarterbacks play. One plays one drive, and another plays another drive.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I hope
the thing that bothers me is, and so I think what you're saying is like you want Luke Fickell to go out there with a legitimate plan.
Yes.
And I don't know necessarily. So one thing I'll say is like, I'm with you. I agree with you.
Right.
But for me, it's like, I think you've got to go out there with a plan. But I think Luke Fickell's that kind of guy.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
absolutely. I think Luke Fickell's the kind of guy who's going to have it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And if that involves both guys in some form or fashion, it will be a planned attack.
Right.
The one thing that bothers me is when coaches want to utilize two quarterbacks, and the way they do it is one guy makes a bad throw, and it's like, all right, you're out.
You're out. Yeah.
It destroys all levels of trust between, think about anything in life. Like, it's like, what do you mean if I make a mistake, I'm done?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or like relationships in life or friendships in life. What do you mean? Like, oops, I accidentally made you mad.
We're done.
You're never talking to me.
Caleb, I'm never having you on my podcast again, okay?
I can't tell you who's playing quarterback for the Bearcats this year, so I'm done. I'm right, exactly. No, I mean, but it's like, I think that destroys all trust, where it's like, you make a bad throw, you're out. I think it destroys all levels of trust there. So it's like, I think you have to come in with a plan and know that. Well, and one thing I'll say about Luke Fickell in terms of that is he even said that to us. He verbalized that to us the other day, that like, mistakes are going to happen. Like, you're going to have guys come out in fall camp and have a bad day. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. And especially with the youth on the team. I mean, we went from, team to, there's going to be some seniors, but it's nowhere close to as many as we had last year. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know it's a younger team. Now, the thing my son brought up to me, and I don't think this will happen, but let's just say, for instance, that the Bearcats go undefeated again for the 3rd straight year. Again, I don't personally think that's going to happen. But just if they do you think they'll put them back in the college football playoffs?
It's tough.
I kind of tend to think not.
I don't know. I think it's possible. I don't. I want to say I want to say yes, because
I want to say yes too.
I mean, realistically speaking, man, honestly, a lot, and for better or for worse, like, Bearcats fans, please don't come at me for saying this. Like, I mean, because it was awesome seeing the Bearcats in the college football playoff last year. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, amazing. Like, take me out of Cincinnati and stick me in wherever, like stick me in Miami, Florida, and make it where I have no connections to the Bearcats whatsoever. I would have been pulling for them. I mean, I wanted to see a group of 5 team make the college football playoff. Like, even back in the day, like, I wanted to see, I'm trying to think of like like Boise State back in the day. I freaking loved Boise State back in the day.
Statue of Liberty play, remember that?
Oh my, I'll never forget it. 06 Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma. Dude, we'll never forget it. Like, I loved every minute of all of that. So I wanted to see a group of 5 team make the college football playoff. It was just like so sweet that it happened to be Cincinnati, and we're here, and it's this, like, we get to be the ones that experience this. That was awesome. Okay, so to get back to your question and to get back to answering that, one major factor for why Cincinnati made the college football playoff last year. There were a lot of factors that went into that, but one major factor was that after they beat Notre Dame continued to be really damn good the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That really helped the Bearcats. I think if Notre Dame turned around and like lost 3 games the remainder of the year, I question whether Cincinnati would have been in there. Another factor is that, like in that Big 12 championship game, I think it was Baylor and Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like we needed. It
No,
all
it's
runs
Baylor and Oklahoma,
together.
wasn't it? It was Baylor and Oklahoma.
Was it Baylor, Oklahoma?
I think it was. I remember I watched that game too. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
We needed, I think we, if I'm not mistaken, we needed, I'd have to go back and look. I feel like we needed Baylor to win or whatever. Basically, whatever we needed to happen,
happened.
For Cincinnati it happened.
Yeah.
And like there were so many factors. I could go back to like even October, and I'm like breaking down the playoff rankings, and I'm saying like we need, the Cincinnati Bearcats need this and this and this to happen. And it just seemed like those things kept happening.
Well, I'll put it this way, Caleb. Even for me as a jaded Bearcat fan, I still didn't think they were going to put them in. Even though all this stuff was happening, I still didn't believe until that last, the Final Four was announced and UC was in it. I'm like,
I know, yeah.
Wow, okay, we really are going to be in
even
this
up to
thing.
5 minutes before that. Like, if you know anything about college football, you're looking at the different factors here, and you're like, there's legitimately no way that they can keep the Bearcats out.
Right.
Like there's just, you can't make an argument.
Well, I kept thinking they would.
I know, but it was like you can't, I'm saying I'm along the same lines with you. It was like, there's no argument. Like I went to sleep the night before after they beat Houston the night before. I went to sleep that night and I was like, holy cow, the Bearcats are about to be in the college football playoff. Like I was like, I was sure of it. Right. And then I woke up the next morning and I was like, are they though?
Right, exactly. Like, are they really gonna do that?
Are they gonna do that? Like it was like I went to sleep thinking they're in there, and then I woke up and I'm like this like cloud of sense, I guess, came over me. Sense in the form of like they're not gonna let that happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not gonna let that happen. And then sure enough, it was like they did, which was the right call. And look, even that game against Alabama, they could not stop Alabama's run game. But
look, the thing that drove me nuts about that this is gonna drive me nuts till probably the day I die. I wish they would have put Kobe and Sauce on an island, stacked the box, and made sure they stopped the run and make them throw the ball. That maybe wouldn't have worked. I don't know, but because they could not stop them running. We had a problem stopping people run the ball all year. You had to sell out and try to stop that run. You had two of the best probably the two best cornerback tandem in college football.
Like, in a long time in college football.
So I'm like, put them out there. That's the and then the offensive play calling was anyway. I can critique a lot of this stuff.
For me, the one thing that I will always look back to in that game and just cringe about was that punt, the muffed punt. Where Cincinnati punts it, Alabama, bobbles it, and Cincinnati, they're like right there, and you thought they were going to recover it, and it was like, I think it was a 7-point game at that time.
Yeah, it was close.
If Cincinnati jumps on that, I've gone back in my mind, I've gone back and watched it, I've gone back, and then I'm like, if Cincinnati jumps on that, I think they have the ball in the red zone or close to the red zone.
Yeah, or just right outside of it. Yeah.
Yeah, right around the 20-yard line, maybe even closer. And you score and you got a tie game.
Exactly.
But what ended up happening was Alabama recovered that. They go right down the field in like 7 or 8 plays and score a touchdown. And it was like, damn, like we went from a game that could have been tied if we had recovered that and scored to suddenly it's you're down 14 points to Alabama.
Yeah.
And it's like, man,
like we had it.
Huge right there. That's the play and like the series of that game. Look, again, Cincinnati couldn't stop Alabama's run game. Call it what you want, whatever. They couldn't stop Alabama's run game. But it's like if you got a tie game with Alabama at that point right there,
Oh, that's
you know,
game changer.
who knows?
It's just like I'll put it this way: you roll to the Bengals and the Chiefs game in the AFC Championship game. If Eli Apple doesn't tackle Tyreek Hill right there going into halftime, who knows? We might not win that game.
Yeah, that was. You want to talk about turning points in games?
Yeah,
that tackle, the last play before halftime out at Arrowhead was one of the most memorable plays of my life.
Yeah.
That I've ever seen in a game. And it's one of those things where, I mean, obviously we all look back at like Evan McPherson's game-winning field goal. We look back at like the drive where Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, stalled there late in the game. We can look at like the game-winning interception against the Raiders. We can look at Tannehill throwing 2 picks or whatever. We can look at all these things.
Right.
But like that goal line stop by the Bengals defense before halftime was, I will never forget seeing that, because that play in itself was like, for Bengals fans, I think was like, holy cow. Like we can win this game. We might be down. Were they down 17 at the time?
Yeah. It was 17. Yes.
Down 17 at the time. And it's like, for some crazy reason, it's like, I think Bengals fans were like, we can win this game. And again, down 17 to the Chiefs at their place at halftime. Come on. You're not winning that game. You're not winning that game.
You know what I mean? I'm getting goosebumps just talking about that. I'm like, when he did that, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, all right, we're in this. We're in this. We got this.
And it's like, but again, it's like common sense would tell you, no, you're not. What do you mean you're not? What do you mean you're going to win this? You're down 17 to the Chiefs at halftime at their place in the AFC Championship. You're not winning that. And
lo and behold, they did.
And again, I really think that play, again, it's like when that play happened, the scoreboard didn't matter. It didn't matter. 17.
It changed the whole momentum. It changed everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs just they went from a very confident team to that put doubt in their head.
Well, and it was like, I mean, legitimately, the Chiefs did almost anything they wanted for most of the first half. I mean, they did almost anything they wanted. And then it was like, and I think for that play, it was like, well, we've done whatever we wanted most of the first half. Like, just score on these guys, call it a day, and go to the Super Bowl. And it was like, they get to stop. And it's like, oh, well, okay. Maybe I don't know. It was like one of the weirdest, most emphatic turning points in a game that I've ever seen.
Yeah. All thanks to Eli Apple. Go figure. All right. You've been on for over an hour here. Real quick. One last question. I'll let you go, Caleb. What was last year like? Because I had a blast doing my podcast with the Bengals and Bearcats. The runs both of them went on. What was it like? I'm sure it was busy as all get out, but what was that like covering that last year?
In one word, it was exhausting. But it was also like legitimately easily the highlight of my whole career. I mean, it's like, it's funny. People come up to me sometimes and ask me, they're like, what's the coolest thing you've ever covered? And I'm like, the Super Bowl?
Duh. See, I didn't ask you that. I knew that answer.
I'm like, I'm like, I want to give you like a more thought out answer, but
it's the Super Bowl.
It's the Super Bowl. It's like, we talk about these other things in life, and you're like, this is the Super Bowl of this. This is that team's Super Bowl, or like, this is the Super Bowl of it. And it's like, no, this is the actual Super Bowl. Right. No, I mean, it was thrilling, man. Like the Super Bowl on that day, February 13th, I worked like almost 24 hours straight.
No, I bet you
in LA. I mean, because you got to think about like the time change, and like we had like a 4-hour TV special that we did from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern time. So like we're talking about 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
I remember watching it, and the sun was barely up or whatever, and
it's
you
like
guys were out there
beaming. It's like beaming in my eyes or whatever. Right. And it's like, and I mean, you got to think like I'm not a morning person as it is, and I've been up since like 4 a.m. But at the same time, like it didn't even like the day of the crazy thing is like the harder days for me leading up to it were the days leading up to it. I mean, the harder days were the days leading up to it. The day of the Super Bowl for me was like not even hard.
Right.
It was like, it was a long day. It was a very long day. but it wasn't even hard because it was like, this is, I'm like, not even, I feel like I'm not even like here. Like,
Right.
I feel like it was an unbelievable experience. And then, but you could say the same for the college football playoff too.
Mhm.
I mean, just seeing I think the thing for both, the thing that like stands for both of those experiences, the Bearcats and the Bengals, college football playoff and Super Bowl, is what you could tell that it meant to the fan base. Uh,
Right.
because
Yes.
sometimes, like, inherently, we tend to sometimes, and I say we, I mean, like, people who cover these teams and are in the locker room and in the press conferences, sometimes we tend to stick our heads so deep in the sand of covering that team
Right.
that it's like sometimes you have to pop your head out of the sand and go, wow, like,
Look where I'm at. This is pretty cool.
look at what this means.
Right.
Look at what this means to those, to people who, you talk to people on camera for interviews and you're like, and those people are like, well, my parents had season tickets, my grandparents had season tickets,
Mhm.
I'm talking about, like, whether it be the Bengals, the Bearcats, the Reds, like whatever. I mean,
Right.
whatever these teams are, you look at what it means to the fan bases. And it's like, that was, for me, that was the coolest thing about the Super Bowl, was seeing what it meant. And, like, let's call it exactly what it is, man. Like, this is not a shot against the Rams at all. It's just calling it what it is. Like, the Rams were in St. Louis for the longest time, and
Mhm.
not to say that, like, they don't have loyal, genuine fans in LA, because they do. But, like, but Bengals fans, like, at that stadium, you could tell there was a different feeling around the Bengals at SoFi Stadium than there was around the Rams. There was just
Yeah.
this feeling around the Bengals fan base of just like, I don't know what word to put on it, but you could just, like, you had people, like, I'm getting chills thinking about it, but, like, you had people who were willing to spend, like, their life savings
Uh-huh.
to be a part of this. And
Uh-huh.
because it's literally the most meaningful thing in that person's life. And you tell me that's not, like, just doesn't give you chills thinking about
Right.
that, like, this means so much to this fan base, to not just those people, not just the people that are willing to spend all their money to go out to LA, but the people who don't have the money to go out to LA and are watching it at home with their family and, like, crying tears because,
That was me.
exactly. And so that for me was, like, the coolest thing about the whole thing. People talk about, oh, it must be so cool to, like, talk to the players and, be at practice or whatever. And, that's one thing, and that's great. But for me, like, some of the most memorable moments of that Super Bowl run was seeing what it meant to the fan base.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
you know, that's like the most memorable thing for me. And I'll never forget. I think one of the greatest sports moments I've ever experienced with my own eyes in person was when, I mean, the AFC Championship was awesome when they
Right.
won the AFC Championship. Can never take that moment away from Cincinnati and the
Right.
Bengals and what that meant. But honestly, man, when that interception to beat the Raiders
Yeah. Oh, dude.
at Paul
Yeah.
Brown Stadium,
It exploded.
just knowing what it meant, like,
Yes.
3 decades of futility, just
Mhm.
3 decades of, like, we're
Goosebumps on me.
cursed. Like, all the talk that week about, like, the Bo Jackson curse and, like,
Uh-huh.
it's, this is just never going to happen. Like, we're not meant, we just, whatever it is, it's like, we're just not meant to win a playoff game. We're just, our ceiling is always going to be pretty good. Like the best we're ever going to be is, like, a pretty good team. That's our ceiling. And then it's like, in that moment, it just, like, broke that glass ceiling wide open.
Oh,
And
dude, I was balling. I mean, I'll legitimately tell you, like, because I just remember, because I have season tickets. I'm in section 158, so they're going away from me when the Raiders
yeah,
are making that drive. It's me and my son, and I'm just Like, we've been there for the 2015 meltdown and all these other playoff meltdowns that we've had. I'm like, please, God, not again. But the weird thing for me was I knew we were going to win. I don't know why. I just had this feeling something's going to happen. We're going to stop them, or we're going to win. It was a different vibe for me for some reason.
Different feeling than you've had in a long time.
It wasn't that sinking, oh crap, here we go again feeling. It was somebody's going to make a play. And when Pratt intercepted it, the whole place freaking exploded. And we were lighting up cigars. We were throwing beer. I was hugging people I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm there with my son. I can't talk about too much, or I'll get too emotional about it. But I just started tearing up. I'm thinking of finally, we won a playoff game. Finally, it happened. The last time I saw us win one, I was in high school. I was 15, 14 years old. That was a long time ago. And for us to finally get over that hump, and then for the team to turn around and take it all the way to the Super Bowl, hell yeah, it meant a lot to this fan base.
Yeah.
The long-suffering fans like myself and other people have been at season ticket holders longer than I have. I've been there throughout all this stuff, and they haven't left. For it to finally turn around and take it to the Super Bowl, that still sucked that we lost. But it was euphoric. It was just the weight had been lifted off of our shoulders. And I talked about this, I think, with it was Richard Skinner, or I can't remember who it was I had on here, but basically the pressure was on the fan base more than the players this time. Because these players didn't know anything about it. They weren't here for all the players. They weren't here for tomorrow. They weren't here for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't care. We were. So it's like when that happened, we just exploded because the weight was off our shoulders. We don't have to hear it anymore about, oh, you guys never won a playoff game and oh, this happened. Nah, we won one. Hell, we went to the Super Bowl. So that was what it was like for me.
The memorable moment for me, and you're exactly right. And I'm just, in a way, like validating that statement, validating what you're saying about the players. So it was right after the AFC Championship game. I was down in the tunnel, and the players are all walking off the field. And Evan McPherson, I talked to him for a minute. Somebody asked him something about, it's been 3 decades, and, what does it feel like to get this franchise back to the Super Bowl for the first time in 3 decades or whatever. And he was like, well, it's great, but you got to think, I've not been around the Bengals for 3 decades. I just got here. So like, for me, this is normal. This is what the Bengals are to me. Like we go to the Super Bowl, and I paraphrase there, but like, it's just like that was it for me. It was like, that's a great point, man. Like I feel this. My mom's a big Bengals fan. Like she grew up in Cincinnati. I grew up, coming to Bengals games and cheering for the Bengals and stuff when I was a kid, and well aware of like all the years of suffering for Bengals fans. So even in that moment, like for me, I'm just like, I'm mind blown. What do you mean the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl? What?
Right.
But then to hear Evan McPherson just be like, I don't know, like that feels pretty normal to me. I was just like, okay, I
can get used to this feeling normal. I'll take this.
Yeah, that was what really stuck out to me, was how nonchalant he was about it, which I guess he's just like that in general. Like, oh, I guess we're going to the AFC Championship.
Going to the AFC Championship game. Okay. I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, I was at the Tennessee game, and I was actually standing in this end zone that he kicked the field goal up to win it. And I'll never forget this because, again, me crying. I dropped to my knee. That's how I was standing. I just dropped to my knees and I started bawling, dude. I'm like, I couldn't believe we won. We went and won another one.
Yeah.
And I still never forget this. I don't know who the lady was, but this Tennessee Titan fan kind of walked by me and goes, well, that's a little dramatic. And I said, you have no freaking clue what I've been through as a Bengals fan to have this come down to, Eli Apple tips the ball, Logan Wilson interception. We'll go down the field and Shooter kicks the game-winning field goal in the end zone that I'm standing in. I to this day, in my brain, I can see the ball going right through right through the field goal, and us just going freaking nuts and taking over that town. Yeah, you damn right. That meant a lot to us. So it was awesome. It was so much fun last year. I cannot wait till this year starts. And Friday night, I'm gonna be in the jungle and at Paycor Stadium, but I'm excited.
You got it right. You didn't slip up there. That's
I didn't slip up that time.
So. What did you think of the last field goal ever kicked in Paul Brown Stadium? The 65-yarder.
Oh, I like
you know what I mean. Like obviously the name changed now, so I guess that'll go down as the last field goal ever kicked inside. Paul Brown Stadium.
You know what I found interesting. I was listening to a couple of different podcasts, but somebody brought up the record, and I don't know it offhand.
66. Are you talking about the NFL record?
No. The record at Paul Brown Stadium for when it was named the Bengals record at Paul Brown Stadium.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, I thought you were talking about field goal distance.
No, I switched it to the.
I got you now. Yeah, I'm with you now.
But the Bengals actually have a winning record. I think they're +9.
Well, dude, I honestly I think people forget the Bengals had some good years in there.
Yeah,
they just never won a playoff game.
The first 2 years,
they had some really good years in there.
Yeah. First 2 or 3 years of the stadium, they were awful. But when 2003 on, for the most part, they were a good team.
Yeah, I mean, that era was such a fun era. I mean, really, honestly, did they win a playoff game? No, but you look at Carson Palmer, and I don't know, people have their opinions about him these days or whatever, but it was fun. It was a fun era. You got Chad Johnson, TJ Hushmanzada. You could continue to reel off those names, but what a fun era of Bengals football. It just never amounted to, what people ultimately wanted it. Yeah. I mean, never amounted to a playoff win, but the Bengals had some really good teams in there. And then even in the 2010s, you've got AJ Green and you've got Andy Dalton. And I mean, again, some very good Bengals teams in there. So it's it was like this, again, it was like glass ceiling for the Bengals. It's not that they've been honestly, I would like to know what the Lions record is at Ford Field or what.
Oh, dude. That's always been my argument with Stephen A. Smith or whatever say, I would, if I was Joe Burrow, I'd rather go to the Lions. Are you freaking kidding me? I said, I guarantee you we got a better record than what the Lions do.
That's not for me. That's not a shot at Detroit or anything.
No,
I legitimately want to know the Lions record. I don't know what. Let me look it up. You want me to look it up?
Look it up. I'll look it up. It's curious. Because I know that because I don't even remember what year. What that stadium it's only 3 years old or something, isn't it? 3 or 4 years old?
No. It's been around for a long time.
Is it older than that?
2002 was the first year.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Sheesh. Way older than I thought it was.
Detroit Lions record at Ford Field, according to this, just a quick, I assume that Ford Field history, Detroit Lions regular season record, 68-92.
There you go.
Just saying.
I mean, we're speaking facts.
Or should I stop there? Or should I look up the Browns record?
Oh, please do. Please, yes. I would love to do the Browns record.
Browns. At First Energy Stadium.
I'm glad I don't even remember the name of their stadium, so I'm glad you knew that.
I don't know if it's always been called that. I don't know. It was Cleveland Browns Stadium from 99 to 2012, and it was First Energy from 2013 to 2022. Okay. 72, 111, and 1. So here we go. You said the Bengals
I think they're +9. I can't remember what the record was. I think it had almost 100 wins. I think they played 197 games in there.
90, according to this regular season, 93, 81, and 2. So
winning ties. Record. Yeah. Yep. Winning record. So there you go. See?
There you go. No, I mean, but your point stands. And your stands even stronger now that we've looked those things up. I honestly can't look back and ever say at this point in time the Lions were good.
Right.
consistently, like good for, I mean, maybe, I don't, they may have had like a season or two in there where they were decent or whatever, but I can't ever look back and say like, man, this, and again, like, please, man, that's not a shot at Detroit.
No, it's not. It's just
It's
just facts.
I'm just calling it what it is. Like, I can't ever look back and say like this era of Detroit Lions football. Like, I mean, yeah, Barry Sanders, you know, I don't even know if, I don't know how many games they won in that time or whatever.
That was back in the 90s. I think he retired in 99.
Yeah. But like, yeah, at this point, like you have to go back a long way just to find that. But no, I mean, the fact of the matter is your point stands. And that is, it's not like the Bengals are just this like terrible, no good, have never been a decent organization. It's not like it's not even close to the case. They've had a lot of good years in there. Like, think about like Chad Johnson and his touchdown celebrations, dude. Like, what an era!
Chad made the Bengals cool again.
Oh, the Bengals were the coolest back then, man. Like, I mean, like, just waiting to see him score a touchdown and like, what's he gonna do this time? Like, is he gonna get the pylon out and like play golf with the football,
or do the river dance, or ask the cheerleader out?
Like, what's this guy? Is he gonna like rock the baby or whatever? Like, what is this guy gonna do? It was like the Bengals were like, can't miss television. Like you were watching. You would draft. I mean, Chad Johnson was good to have on your fantasy team. I mean, he was great, but you would draft him on your fantasy team just so you'd have more of a reason to watch his game and see what, you know, you would hope for him to score a touchdown. Like, you know how it is in fantasy football. It's like you want to cheer for your guys to score. It's like, well, I want to see his touchdown celebration. So like, I'm going to draft him in fantasy so that, you know, I not only get to see his touchdown celebrations, but I get points for it too. It's like,
so speaking of touchdown celebrations, can you do the gritty? Are you
no,
a gritty guy?
Man, no. So no.
I have no shot at doing it.
I don't even know how in depth, dude. I can't dance, man. It's like one of these things where it's like, I'm a musically inclined guy. I am. Yeah. I like music. I know every word to every song. It's like, you get me in a car with the windows. I don't care. Windows down, whatever. I don't care. Get me in a car. I'll like sing. I know country music. I know rap music. I know R&B. I mean, I know every word to like every song out there, but like I can't sing and I can't dance. I'm not good at either. And so
that's why you're a sportscaster. That's good.
Yeah, that's why I talk about sports on TV so that nobody ever wonders about my singing or dancing ability. But here you are asking about my dancing, and now
hey, that's what you get on the Strawberry Ice podcast here.
I can't gritty. I've been working on it, man.
There you go.
I need to get to that point.
You've been on for almost an hour, damn near an hour and a half. So I appreciate you coming on. This is one of the longest podcasts I've done for a one-on-one interview. So I appreciate it. Tell everybody any news stories you got coming out or anything you want to plug before I let you go.
So there's what I've been working really hard on recently is there's this team, their season starts soon, and we're going to have a lot of coverage of it. They're orange and black. And no, I've been so deep in Bengals coverage the last like month or so.
Right.
I will say this, my coworker, Marshall Kramsky, is up in Dyersville, Iowa right now.
Okay.
For that Field of Dreams game. And he's been an awesome addition to our team at Channel 9. He has done some phenomenal stories up in Dyersville, Iowa. I would encourage you to go look those up. One other thing I'll say, we are about to dive really deep into high school football, which is something that I just thoroughly enjoy every year. I played football growing up. I played high school and college football. I was a kicker, by the way. So like seeing Evan McPherson and, you know, seeing what.
Well, then you guys should have a kickoff sometime at practice.
Dude. I'll
try to get you to the gritty. I'll try to get a competition.
Dude, you know? Honestly, like I still go out and kick sometimes. It's one of those things where it's like, I compare it to like pitching in baseball or playing golf, where you have to be totally locked in and focused on what you're doing, or you're gonna shank it. You're gonna miss it. You're gonna like, you know, if I'm not totally focused on the ball that I'm about to kick, it's probably not going to go through the uprights.
That's why I suck at
same with
golf.
same with well, exactly. It's like same with golf. It's
Right,
like
right.
if you're like thinking about this project that you've got going on at work or whatever, if you're like out at the golf course and you're like thinking about all these other things and not the golf ball that you're about to hit, like the ball's going to go who knows where,
Right.
because you've got to be locked in on that. And that's how I feel about kicking. So point of me saying that is like, sometimes I'll still go out and kick these days. It's like, it's kind of like my mental release.
Right.
You know, it's golf for some people. I like to go to the driving range. I just suck. That's the problem. I've been getting better, man. I've gone to the driving range several times this year, and I've actually gotten quite a bit better.
There you go.
I'm still not good. But no, kicking is one of those things that's like that. It's like you have to be so focused, that mentally focused, that like it's a good stress reliever for me.
Right.
But no, back to the point. I adore high school football, and Cincinnati has some of the best high school football anywhere. So
Absolutely.
I cannot wait to get into high school football season here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna have my nephew's senior year. He's starting I think DN. Yeah, DN for Dixie Heights over there in Kentucky.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
So I have family that went to Dixie Heights. My grandma graduated from Dixie Heights.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're Dixie Heights. They've put together some good teams recently.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe they'll make a run this year. Who knows?
Football is always tough. It's always tough. I mean, but they've put together some good teams recently. So
exactly.
You know,
we'll be have a good one this year for Luke for his senior year. That'd be nice. So Caleb, you know, if you ever need any extra help, you know, Channel 9, you know, you can always hit me up. I'll come in and help do a broadcast or something.
Well, you already got a bunch of 9s behind you there and on your hat. So
I do.
It works out, man. It works out, like Channel 9. And you know, I mean, think about it. Last year, I know I've been on for an hour and a half. I'm not trying to hold you up.
No,
here.
Keep going, man. You're good.
You know, you got to think about it. Last year was pretty cool because being at Channel 9, the quarterback for the Bengals was number 9.
Yep.
What about the Bearcats, though?
Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty cool. You got Desmond Ridder wearing number 9 for the Bearcats.
Yep.
You got Joe Burrow wearing number 9 for the Bengals, and you're there wearing number 9.
Number 9. There you go. So. There you go. All right, Caleb. Well, again, I appreciate it. We'll definitely have to do this again sometime. Are you going down to practice today, or are you hanging out at the pool?
I am probably not going to actually be at practice today. I've been at many practices in the last 2 weeks. I will probably not be there myself today.
Well, I will. If I get down there, I need to go take a nap because I worked all night. But I'll try to hold it down for you, and I'll send you some reports.
Sounds great, man.
All right, Caleb. Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
All right, man. Have a good one.